All right, huge breaking news. So I'm going to have to do one of my airport videos here. Michael Cohen has pled guilty to lying to Congress, and he's working with a special counsel. So what he has lied about is monumentally important. This is a giant, giant story. So he said that they had cut off contacts with the Russians and the Trump organization in January of 2016 before the primaries, Republican primaries began. He now says that was a lie, that Michael Cohen and Donald Trump continued to talk to the Russians all the way up to and through June of 2016. That means after he had already won the Republican primaries. So what were they talking about? A Trump Tower in Russia. Now, here's what the rest of the press is not adequately pointing out that I really need you guys to understand. Trump licenses his name to towers, and he basically gets about $20 to $40 million for his name, depending on the situation. Now, there are some deals where he has to put money in and he has to risk his own money. In some places where he just gets the money and then someone else actually does the building, right? So, in essence, by naming Trump Tower in Russia, and Cohen says he was talking to the office of Vladimir Putin. Hence, the Russian government would simply just be giving him $20 to $40 million. That is a massive, massive bribe, okay? Now, if you're a Republican and you heard that Hillary Clinton was talking to the Russians after she knew she was the Democratic nominee and they promised her $20 to $40 million, now, would you think, oh, the Russians might want something back? Of course they want something back. That's a massive bribe. And Trump, lied about it and now basically admits. Now, he says, Michael Cohen is very weak. He flipped. First of all, listen to that. You know what that means? That means he flipped, as in he told the prosecutors the truth. He flipped on our criminal enterprise, and he was weak. Weak doesn't mean he's lying. Weak means he couldn't stand up to the prosecutors. If he was a strong criminal like me, he would have stood up to them. But anyway, the more important part is the admission that Donald Trump said, because he's such a dummy. He's so stupid. You know what he just said? He said, what was I supposed to do? Miss out on opportunities? Oh my God, yes. If you're running for president and a foreign government is trying to give you, in essence, a multi-million-dollar bribe, yes, you're supposed to miss out on that opportunity. If you're not a criminal and you actually want to represent the people of America and not your own financial dealings, yes, you miss out on that opportunity of getting bribed. And how stupid are you that after this story breaks and Michael Cohen pleads guilty, for him to say basically that, yes, it's true. And he's saying, well, no, I'm not saying it happened, but what was I supposed to do? I was still running my business. I don't want to miss out on opportunities. That's an admission. You schmuck, right? So we can't have somebody running for president looking to line their own pockets. That's not just institutional and systemic corruption like the other politicians. That's personal corruption. So if you wondered why he was so soft on the Russians all throughout, and in every way that we have outlined on the Young Turks, and we've shown you dozens of ways that he's favored the Russians and attacked our own allies and NATO and etc. And didn't want to put sanctions on him because he might have $40 million on the line. I mean, do you know that he said that he claims he's not subject to conflict of interest provisions as president, meaning that he could still run his business, and he does. He quote unquote gave it to his children. That's not a blind trust. He knows where his properties are. He knows what his business interests are, and he drives people to Trump hotels, etc. That's the small dollar. That's the small scam. The big scam is, hey, when I get out of office, after all the things that I did for you, Russia, let's go back to that Trump Tower deal, and you give me the $40 million bribe. So the fact that Michael Cohen, his own attorney, his fixer, has now confessed and has pled guilty and said, yes, he even planned to go to Moscow, and yes, he talked to Putin's office. Yes, it was after Trump won the nomination. And Trump basically, as usual, accidentally admitted it. That is gigantic. It's absolutely gigantic. And if you're a real American and you care to have the president not be corrupt and represent us instead of representing a foreign government, let alone one that is hostile to us, let alone that one that interfered in our elections and stole things from us and has constantly been working against our foreign interests. For him to represent that foreign government instead of us as the president is unconscionable. If you still think that that's great, well, there's something wrong with you. I mean, what if he worked for another government? I mean, first of all, the Russians are not our friends. They're not our allies, this Russian government. So it's almost as bad as it gets, right? But I mean, is there a government you don't like? What if he was secretly working for the Iranians and the Iranians had promised him tens of millions of dollars? Would you still be okay with it? What if he was working for the Saudis and let them dismember people and get away with it? And even people who lived in America and worked for American media organizations. Oh, right, he did do that. I don't know what other deals he's got, like Saudi Arabia, but now, because of Michael Cohen's guilty plea, we do know what deals he had with Russia. And look, Michael Cohen's going to go to prison for a number of years. You don't admit to something like that you didn't do and agree to go to prison for a long time if you didn't do it, especially if he had stayed loyal to Trump. He would have had the president backing him. He would have had a ton of power, and he still pled guilty because he was guilty. And now people in Washington are saying, well, this also shows that Donald Trump, his word can't be trusted. No, you don't say. Of course. But look, guys, it's one thing to see him lying on tape over and over again, and it's obvious. It's another thing in a court of law for his personal attorney to say, yes, he lied to the American people, and he was secretly negotiating with Russia to get paid by the Russians when he knew he was the Republican nominee. And one last thing, Trump also said in his accidental admissions today, he said, well, I didn't know I was going to win. Maybe I would have lost. So, I had to look out for my own interest. So what, if you're a Republican, you're happy with that? He was thinking, maybe I'll lose, and then I'll take the bribe from the Russians, and I'll at least do them favors while I'm the Republican nominee. I don't think that makes it any better at all. And of course, he didn't lose. He's the president. And now we have a lot of evidence that, in fact, he did do favors for the Russians. And now we have overwhelming evidence that he was planning to get paid for that. There's another word for that. It's called a bribe. This is super serious, and it'll be really interesting to see how this develops. All right, Young Turks is on, obviously, tonight, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss the show. They'll have a lot more details. And, of course, if you want to get all of our programming, sign up for membership at tyt.com/join.